Good morning and welcome to your latest Nottingham Forest news. And today, of course, we would like to start by paying our respects to the Queen who passed away yesterday. If you are pro-monarchy or against the monarchy or whatever your political position is, at the end of the day, it's a human being that has passed, and we mourn and we pay respects to anyone, Queen, King, or person, be it in England, the rest of the world, or anywhere where there's suffering and death. You have our thoughts and our prayers. Guys, let's get into the news and let's talk about what's coming up. We'll be discussing the latest developments on Steve Cooper. He has now been shortlisted for the Brighton job, so we will be discussing that further, as well as talking about the games this weekend and whether or not they are going ahead or they should be going ahead, and how us as fans could react to this. With that said, guys, as always, if you'd be kind enough to drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and if you'd like to support us, please feel free to become a member for 99p or use our Amazon link when doing your shopping. It's completely free to yourselves and it will support the channel. So if you click that link and then carry on shopping, Amazon will give us a thank you for pointing you in that direction. Let's get into the news, guys, and let's start with the main story, which is, of course, Steve Cooper and Brighton. Okay, so let's bring you the latest on the manager saga at Brighton and Hove Albion. Today, it's been reported that Steve Cooper has been put on the Brighton shortlist, along with the likes of the Luton and Swansea manager in Nathan Jones and Russell Martins. Now, those two have been given permission to speak to Brighton, but Forest have yet to be approached to have permission discussing whether or not Steve Cooper can speak to Brighton. It is my understanding that this will be rejected once that does happen. And, for all of you guys who've been asking me, well, his contract is nearly up, what's going to happen, etc., it doesn't really matter because he still is under contract. The club does have to give permission first for a manager to be approached. It's, by the book, that's the way things are done. I'm sure behind the scenes there are conversations that happen, a bit like with player transfers, where normally you need permission from the club to speak first, but agents are usually talking in the background to the interested club, and it will be a similar kind of thing with managers. So at the moment, I think that the Swansea manager or the Luton manager are probably the better fit for Brighton. In terms of, that's the style that Brighton like to go down. They like to bring an up-and-coming manager who's had good season and is looking to make that next step up in their career, a bit like they did with Potter as well in the last position. For Cooper to go to Brighton would require a lot of things to happen, and a lot of things that I can't see happening. One, he would need permission, as I said, from the club. But secondly, he would need to have a good look in the mirror and decide, is Brighton the right next step in his career path? And for me, it is not. Why do I say that? As I mentioned, and I'll cover a few points that I did from yesterday, that with Brighton, the foundations have already been built by Potter, and Cooper would be going into a house that isn't built to his, criteria and his requirements. Whereas with Nottingham Forest, we've been investing in him more so than just the team. If you look at it, the players that have come in are players that Cooper wanted. Look at Morgan Gibbs-White as the main example. He was overpaid for. There's no two ways about it. He's probably worth 20 million, 15 to 20 million. But Marinakis is so invested into Cooper that he was willing to pay 25 mil for him and then slap on all those add-ons as well, in terms of success factor add-ons. So that's one example. Then you look at the other players that have been brought in. They've all been designed to fit into a Cooper system. And my understanding is, regardless of the rumours and the unrest that people are talking about, when it came to recruitment, it was done between Cooper and the hierarchy. There was discussions had. At the end of the day, these players have to play under Cooper. They won't be reporting to Marinakis or his son or anyone like that. They will be in, day out, in training with Cooper and understanding his philosophies and his ideas. Also, Cooper has done more for this club in the past year than all the managers put together over the last 23 years. And for Marinakis to want him to go is completely out of the question. Now, that's from the Forest side of things. There has been talks about, oh, he's not getting on with the hierarchy. They're picking the team. They're doing this. They're doing this. They're doing that. This is all just speculation and talk. And this kind of talk only comes when results on the pitch aren't going the way you want them to go. Well, if we had won our first 5 or 6 games, do you really think there would be any talks about Marinakis picking the team? Do you really think there'd be talks about unrest? There are things that are happening. There's, the leaks of the starting 11 coming out a day before or so. That's not on. That's not, acceptable. These are things though that don't just traditionally happen in one club. They will happen across clubs, be it in the Premier League, the lower leagues, whatever. This is always going to be the case when you have players who can't get into the team. From my understanding, these leaks are coming from players who are fringe players, who potentially are not part of the first match team or squad. So there's a lot of this stuff that will go on, but you got to understand that you can't keep everyone happy. Yes, we're going to have a 25-man squad or a 30-man squad, depending on how many under-21s we have, but there will be players who have come in who won't even get a chance to play in the first team. And how would you feel as a player like that? You're going to be, of course, you're professional, but at the same time, you're human and you're wondering, why would I have made that move if I can't impact the first team? So there's a lot of that going on, but this is what I'm saying is normal politics within a club. You can only field a max of 11 starting players. That will never change in football. So understand the difference between day in, day out politics and rumourville would be my first point to you. Now, in terms of Cooper, the big thing that's getting the Forest fans going is the talk of him not signing his contract. I still don't see this as an issue at all, and I'll explain why. Length on contract is only beneficial to a manager. A chairman would ideally like to have managers on a shorter term contract. Why? Because if they were to fire a manager, it's not like you getting fired at work where they'd give you your 4 weeks notice, get rid of you and on your bike. With a manager, the contract then has to be paid out and there's probably compensation to be done on top of it. So for example, let's just pick a manager. Let's say Jurgen Klopp. Let's just say he had 3 years left on his contract and Liverpool decided to fire him today. They would then need to pay out that contract. Now, what they don't do is just add it all up for the months and then pay it out. What they'll say to him is, okay, we're going to carry on paying your contract until you enter into new employment. Once you enter into new employment, then we will terminate the contract. There may be NDAs signed, so non-disclosure agreements where he can't talk about what's going on in the club, maybe kickbacks in terms of money given for that. But that's all the stuff that goes on. So in theory, if Klopp, and I'm not saying Klopp's getting sacked, I'm just using him as an example. If he was to not find a new club for 3 more years, then Liverpool would have to carry on paying his contract out for that length of period, unless they came to some kind of agreement where they decided, right, let's just call it 60%, we're going to pay you up and that's that done. Get a club or don't get a club. So back to my point is, with a shorter term contract on a manager, the payout is less for the chairman or the owner. So that way they're more protected. Now, if you look at Cooper, he has, a year left on his contract. So it would be in Marinakis' interest to keep that loose. Now, of course, Cooper being sought after, as we're seeing, he's being linked to Brighton, etc. You want to tie that manager down as well. The advantage to a long-term contract obviously would be if another club comes knocking and they need to give you compensation to buy it out. But in general, and speaking about a normal scenario, a longer-term contract protects the manager. So the point here is Cooper is in no rush to sign the contract. Therefore, he is not threatened by things like sackings, by things like that. Otherwise, he would just sign it and be like, if they sack me, they sack me. At least I'm covered now for 3 years instead of 1 year, or whatever the new contract length is going to be. So all this speculation, all this talk is just hearsay and people reacting to the results on the pitch. Once the results sort themselves out, and they will, and I fully back Cooper here, and I fully believe he's going to get things up and running. Once he sorts the defence out, once he knows who his best starting 11 is, we're going to see a meteoric rise from Forest in the Premier League. So bear with that. But he's not scared about the length of his contract, which to me means that he is very secure in his position at Nottingham Forest. So bear that one in mind. But also, he is being shortlisted. And as I said yesterday, him being shortlisted, to me, had he not been shortlisted, I would have been insulted. because of what he's done over the last year at Nottingham Forest. He does fit the profile that Brighton would be looking for. In fact, he fits it better than the Luton and the Swansea manager because he was able to succeed in his... Not even that. I'm sure his task last year was to establish and solidify the club. He went further than that and got them promoted. That tells you the kind of stock level he has right now. For anyone judging him after 4 or 5 games, look, we can judge game by game where his performances were good or bad. But overall, if you're going to judge him as a manager of Nottingham Forest, you have to take into account his whole tenure there. So that's my thoughts on Cooper. Yes, he's been shortlisted, but I don't think the club will give Brighton permission to speak to him. So it is very likely it will be either the Luton or the Swansea manager going to Brighton. But this is football and anything can happen. And it usually does. Get your thoughts in down below. Let's move on to our next topic. Okay, so let's move on to the talk about what's happening with the matches this weekend. And it has been announced by the Premier League that as a mark of respect, these matches will be postponed. I'll just quickly read out their statement to you. At a meeting this morning, Premier League clubs paid tribute to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II to honour her extraordinary life and contribution to the nation. And as a mark of respect, this weekend's Premier League matches round will be postponed, including Monday's evening game, which of course is Forest against Leeds. Further updates regarding Premier League fixtures during the period of mourning will be provided in due course. So, we've had confirmation that the matches have been postponed. In my opinion, I don't feel that this is the right approach. I would have liked, as a football fan, to have seen, at Ellen Road or wherever other grounds the matches were being taken. 1 or 2 minutes of silence, maybe another minute where we're just belting out the national anthem. I feel that's more fitting in bringing a nation together. Once you cancel a match, you lose that perspective of a nation uniting in a sporting event. Sport is the universal healer of all things. Look at the World Cups, look at political stuff and things that go on. Football brings people together, and I think people can be brought together in times of mourning as well. It's a very sad loss. Look, the decision is the decision. I'm not disputing it or what have you. But I would have liked the football family to have been able to pay their respects in the way we do best. And honestly, when they pay their respects, it's one of the most beautiful sights you can see on a football pitch. Especially as well, the other thing I would bring into it is, in the times we've had now where we've come out of COVID, we have the cost of living crisis. People are still not back up on their feet. We've got fuel going through the roof. We've got electricity, gas, and all those things. Football is an escapism to a lot of people. And doing, a nice tribute to the Queen before the match, for me, is a chance for everyone to reflect on not just her, but who you've lost yourself in the past. It does bring those thoughts and the family feelings up and to the forefront of your memory. So those are my thoughts on it. Look, I'm not against it. I would love us as football fans to have the chance to pay our respects. I'm sure we will once the league gets back up and running. But just to confirm, this has been now cancelled. So just to break it to you. Guys, we will round the video off here. Thank you guys for watching. As always, I'd appreciate your comments and your thoughts on anything we've discussed today. If you'd be kind enough to leave the video a quick like before you leave and carry on with the rest of your day. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And if you'd like to support us, you can become a member or, of course, use my Amazon link if you're doing any shopping on Amazon. It's completely free to you. If you were to choose to do that. Guys, please go spend time with your family, reflect on those you have lost as well. Remember, life is short, and before you know it, it could end for any one of us. Doesn't matter how old, how young you are, how rich, how poor you are. Life, one thing is guaranteed, is death, and make the most of the time you have. And come on, you Reds.